Hey, welcome back. So in the last tutorial, we made a death screen using a widget. We're going to use that widget that we made in the last tutorial and add it into our player blueprint so that when our player dies, the widget will pop up and then our player can make a decision about continuing on by restarting the game or just quitting the game. All right, so let's go ahead and get to it. Now, one point I want to make first before we get too far is yesterday in the last tutorial, we talked about anchors, and this one is anchored here in the center. The equip buttons, because kind of got focused on getting these set up, I forgot to change the anchor. They're up here in the lower left. So what I want to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to set it so that the anchor for those are kind of here in the bottom center, and for both the restart as well. And that should fix that. And for the text should be anchored to the button, so we should be good with that. All right, so let's go ahead and compile and save it. And let's go ahead and jump on over to the player blueprint. For the player blueprint, we're going to need to first, once we go through the health and we lose our health, and then, we keep taking damage, and then we eventually reach 0. And when we reach 0, we're dead. And then we stop moving. We want to be able to next handle our player death. So we're going to make a custom event because these are preset events, event any damage, and of course we made these with our input actions. There are other preset events buttons, but we're going to have to make our own this time because there isn't one for this. So I'm going to right click and we're going to type in custom, and right at the top, add custom event. And we're going to call this player died. All right, so player died. We're going to go ahead and over here, I'm going to hold the Alt button and left mouse click over the little node and disconnect it, move it down here. I'm going to right click and I am going to call player, I'm going to look for player died, and this function right here, we're going to call the function player died. And you see it's blue. So once we go through the process, we set player is dead. Then we're going to check to make sure we're going to call player died, which is handling the player death. One thing I want to do is first verify that indeed the player died, just in case something weird happens and this function gets called. We also want to have a second check in here. So we're going to get a branch. And we're going to just confirm. So we're going to get is dead. And we're going to check that right there. And then I'm going to plug this into true just to make sure that this gets called. And we're going to test everything to make sure it's working. So I'm going to go back into play here in my play mode. And I am going to hit the K button a couple of times to kill myself. And it should call you died, and it did. So now we know that what has happened is we've gone through this entire process. We called player died function. And then it went into here, it verified that the player is dead, it determined that it was true, and then it printed out my print string in the upper left-hand corner of my viewport. So this one is done. Let's go ahead and highlight this one. We're going to hit C, and we're going to call this one take damage, because that's really what we're doing here. The player is taking damage, and eventually the player gets down to 0, and then player dies, and we call the next function. We're going to change this to a red color just so it stands out. And say OK. So now we're going to add in our functionality down here. I'm going to click on that. I'm just going to delete it. We don't need it anymore for right now. We can always obviously get another one to do troubleshooting later on. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to, after we've determined we're dead, we're going to get a delay. And this delay is going to be about 2 seconds. You can play around with the length, and yet I am hard coding these, but we're using so many delays, and there are going to be different amounts that having a variable over here for delay and not having a standard variable delay amount could cause some problems. So I'm just going to hard code these in. You can come in. Once you get them set, you're probably going to leave them alone anyway. So having a variable that you can change externally probably isn't really necessary for this. But after we call the delay, so basically we die, we wait for 2 seconds. And you know what? I'm actually going to change this to 1 now I think about it. We don't have to wait quite so long. And then we're going to pull up that widget. So we're going to type in widget. Okay. And actually, it needs to be create widget. So we need to create a widget. Create widget. And the widget that we're going to call is going to be our widget blueprint. Since we only have 2, the one we want is this desk screen one right here. And that will bring it up. And now remember, when we created the widget desk screen, in our graph, right here, we took away the mouse, right? But that's after the fact. We first need to give the player the mouse control. So we're going to do the same thing, but in reverse. We're going to actually give them the mouse control here. So we're going to right-click. We're going to get the player controller, right? We need the player controller to be able to get access to the mouse. And we're going to then set, so we're going to actually show mouse cursor. And we're going to set this. We're going to set show mouse cursor. And this is going to be true because once we're dead, we're going to call up this widget. We're going to need to be able to interact with the widget to be able to click the buttons. And that's what this is going to do for us right here. So that's going to be our target. We're also going to now need to be able to set input mode. So we're going to change the input mode from being our mouse and our keyboard to being just our mouse interacting with the buttons on our UI. So this is going to be set input mode. And we want to be able to do game and user interface because this is what's going to allow us to click those buttons and have actually something happen. And that's going to be our player controller there. I'm going to just double click on this to get it kind of pulled down here out of the way, clean that up a little bit, because the other thing we need to do is we need to tell it which widget. And it's going to be this widget right here that we just created. We'll put that right there. So now we're telling it we want to be able to create this widget, have our mouse interact with the UI, and that UI is going to interact with is this widget, so the buttons that we created on that widget. And then we're going to need to add this whole thing to our viewport. So again, I need to add it so our player can actually see it. Add to viewport. Of course, that's not going to work because, again, we have context sensitive and see it's not showing up here. But if I pull off from here, so these little nodes that we create, we double click and we can redirect. These little redirects are also nodes that allow us to pull off of them. And now we can say add to viewport, and add to viewport because this node came from our widget is an option. And I'm also going to reroute this one. Clean it up a little bit. Make it look a little better. We're going to go ahead and compile, and we're going to save it. So let's double check what we did. So when we die, we're going to call player died. We're going to verify player is dead. A little delay. We're going to create the widget. We're going to allow the player to interface with the widget and have mouse control show up so your mouse cursor will be visible. And we're going to put this widget into our viewport. So let's go ahead and test this out. I'm going to hit play. Okay, I'm going to use my kill button a couple of times. I'm going to die, and sadly you died does show up. Now I have my little mouse control here. So if I click on restart, it gives me a chance to restart. If I hit K again a couple times, I die. I can quit my game. All right. And then, again, when we set this up in our widget desk screen, right here we took away the mouse control. So here we give it to them. Here we take it away once the player restarts. So let's go ahead and highlight this. Hit C on the keyboard. And this is going to be handle death of player. And the color, just realized all these little colors show up down here at the bottom. Makes it so much easier. So I can just click on that. It's close enough. May not be identical to the one I had, but good enough. So there we go. We've now got that set up. Let's compile it and save it. And that's it for this tutorial. We now have the ability to have our player take damage, and when our player dies, we have a end screen that pops up, a death screen that gives the player an option to either quit or return to the game and restart it. In the next tutorial, we're now going to take this health system. So basically, it's also a health system because in order to keep track of the damage that we're taking, it reduces our health and updates it in real time. We'll be able to take that information and add that into our widget for our HUD. So we're going to create our health bar in the HUD and have it dynamic so that as we take damage, it'll reduce. So next tutorial. So again, if you like this tutorial, please like it at the bottom. In order to keep up with what we're doing, please subscribe to my channel, and thanks for playing. I'll see you next time.